I'm Sally Pointer. Short video today. I am working on a particularly silly hat. This is a hat for a Landsknecht, and a Landsknecht is a German mercenary, typically famous from the 16th century, so of course they go a little bit before and after that as well. They were very famous for their over-the-top dress sense, and we see a lot of garments that have been modified and altered. So today I'm going to take you through how I've been going about adjusting one of my standard style Tudor caps into something suitable for a Landsknecht. The structure of this hat is similar to a fairly typical Tudor flat cap, the sort of thing you'd see in re-enactment. Now this is one that's just been knit, but it hasn't yet been fulled. It was started in this instance here, knitted out to the edge of the brim, knitted back in to the centre point. This one is grafted at this point. Quite a lot of them, you actually have an extra section like this that is loose and it tucks up inside when it's finished to lock it together. In this case though, we've gone for the simpler option. Then you increase back out the maximum crown width and you decrease into the centre. Others that we know of from excellent examples are started in the centre, worked out, worked to here, worked to the brim, worked to the centre, and then the internal section is worked to fold it together. The end result very, very similar, and both versions are known. Right, so that's the general shape. You can tell at the moment it's baggy, it's loose, it's shapeless, there's no structure to it. But full it, so felt it deliberately, and this is what you end up with. This is one made to exactly the same pattern that has been finished but not yet dressed. Much, much more rigid, much more structure, and that allows you to get the profile that you see in portraits, and we see this finish in excellent examples. Now then, the Landsknecht hat needs to be even more exuberant. These are very, very over-the-top characters. So we've gone for a structure that allows for just more of everything and a bit more shaping. And fresh from being full, this is our hat. This is in an undyed sheep black, which is really a dark brown with occasional white fibre. So it's very similar to the hat we just looked at, but it's got a much wider brim, and the crown, although you can't really tell at the moment, is square shaped. So the first thing I need to do is pull this into shape properly. A very preliminary tug into shape has shown us these nice square corners, nice round crown that's just sticking out along the sides. But what you do get with a square crown is you get a square head opening. So what I'm going to do in a moment is I'm going to get a trusty bucket, which is pretty much exactly the right size for a head, and I'm just going to stretch the hat over that. And then it needs to dry. After it's dried, we can do the nap raising and the cropping, and then we can have some fun with the decoration, because we're going to slash this. We're going to actually cut into the felted wool in lots of different places. And can you see how densely full this is? Even though knitting normally unravels when you cut it, this won't. It's not even like when you steek a jumper. It's so well fulled that we should just be able to cut into this and we can make it look really, really fun. Here we are, bucket in progress. It doesn't have to be perfectly arranged at the moment. We're just trying to get it to dry to the right size and shape. This has had overnight to dry now, so we can take out the bucket, and that now has a much rounder head size. There's still just a hint of moisture in this, but that's okay. What we need to do now is the nap raising. So for nap raising, we're going to use a teasel, and this is not any ordinary teasel. This is a fuller's teasel. Those of you that are familiar with the common wild teasel, have a look at the spines on this. See how hooked they are and how strong they are, and how this is an awful lot longer than a common teasel. You can't do this with a common teasel. If you haven't got a teasel, you can use a wire brush, but a teasel works much better because those hooks are going to lift the pile of the fibre, making a nice plush surface. And all I need to do, let's see if I can do this so you can see what's going on, is lift. Now, I am getting seeds dropping out of this. This was a nice new teasel. That's quite all right. They'll brush off. And I just need to work over the whole surface. Can you see? I know the dark colour isn't the easiest thing to see, but this is giving us a nice fluffy finish. Now, I'm not going to over teasel this because we're going to be doing an awful lot of slashing and adjusting, but I am just going to go over the entire of the top surface and probably a little bit of the underside of the brim. Then I'm going to press it with a steam iron. I want to really compress those fluffed up fibres. And you might think, well, that's overkill. Why doesn't she just iron the wretched thing? But we want a surface that's dense and smooth and luxurious, because that is going to take the slashing better. Look at these seeds. I might plant some of these. This is a few years old, this teasel, but you never know. They might still be viable. I could do with some new ones. So I'm going to work over this. There is another video on my feed, just a short one, that looks at the differences between fuller's teasels and common teasels, if you want to see more of that. But for now, this is probably going to take me half an hour to go over the entire hat. Just take my time. And these teasels are so effective. I'm getting the most lovely teddy bear-like pile coming through. The top surface has now been teaseled, and because it is now really quite sticky up in length, I need to crop the pile. Now you do this with a big pair of shears, and we're going to hold the hat with our hand supporting it, and we're going to hold the shears flat against it, and we're just going to clip away at the top. And what we're doing is we're taking off all the high spots. We're not yet cutting into the hat, we're just taking away all the sticky out bits. These cropping stages were often done with enormous shears, and it was done to fabric as well, so you do occasionally see pictures of huge, absolutely huge shears being used. I'm just using a pair of dressmaker shears. This is just tidying up that plush pile so that we get something that really is very smart looking. I've got a clothes brush here. This is just a soft bristle brush. You can just brush it over just to check that everything's looking good. Finish the cropping. And then my next trick is I'm going to get the steam iron. This isn't actually switched on at the moment, we won't worry about that. I'm going to set it to hot, and I'm going to iron directly onto the hat. I'm going to do all the corners, I'm going to turn up the edges, I'm going to make sure everything's really well pressed. Same on this side. Squash everything really, really thoroughly. And then, because it'll be steamy and warm, we can let that cool off for a bit, and then we can start on the fun stuff. While everything is really lovely and hot and moist, perfect the shape. You can really easily tug things into shape at this point. And we can get right inside the corners. Get those corners nice and distinct. I'm just using that bucket again just to set the head size. Okay. And now we wait. So we've used the basic construction that I've just shown you, but taken inspiration from these woodcut images of Landsknechts going about their business. And you can see there's a lot of slashed edges, sometimes crowns are round, sometimes they're square, sometimes they have puffs of fabric pulled through them. Some of them are probably made from cut and sewn fabric, but others are almost certainly knit structures, just like the vast majority of the population are wearing at this time, that have been jazzed up a little bit. That's what we're going to do to this hat. So it's time to put some slashes into this. I'm probably going to put some in the top as well, and then we can put a bit of lining fabric inside to show through. But let's start with the edges. It's always a bit nerve-wracking at first, but it really is just a case of line up, nice sharp pair of scissors, and cut. And hopefully what you can see is that that is a nice solid piece of fabric. You might get a tiny little wisp pulling away, but nothing really dramatic's going to happen. So we'll go round to the other side and I'll make a similar cut. And the natural tension on the hat is opening the cuts up slightly. So you can do this by eye, you don't need to measure. A lot of the surviving hats that have got slashes very much look as if they've been done by their owner, not by a professional hatter, and they're not perfectly regular, they've just been done by eye. Now, whether that's enough, that's pretty good. So we've got a bit of floppiness going on there, and we can always steam these slightly to puff them into shape a little bit. Okay, what do we think for the top? Shall we put in a couple of slightly oval cuts? So for this I'm going to start by making some cuts. I'll do the same on the other side. You really do have to just be brave doing this. Let me just pop this lining roughly inside so that we can see how it's looking. This may need a little trimming yet. This is a boiled wool, a well-fulled wool, that's going to make a really nice bright lining. Now, as it stands, you're not really seeing that, are you? So what we'll do is we'll cut into the body of the hat. I think that'll do the trick. Take that out so it doesn't get covered in fluff while we do it. It's always a good test of your fulling that you really can chop hats around. One last bit to do. I'm doing this entirely freehand. I know that they're not going to be absolutely identical, but that's okay. That's very much in keeping with this idea of the Landsknechts modifying and adapting fashion to suit them. That's good. I like that. That needs a little trim more there. Okay. So, in a moment, I'm going to arrange these puffs. We can always put a little bit of fabric inside some of them to pad them out, but what I've also got are lots and lots of feathers. And I think, because these aren't huge feathers, I think what we'll do is we'll just arrange these coming out from a hat band. I'm going to just tack them into place with a stitch or two, which I'll do off camera in a moment. And then I think we might find a piece of yellow ribbon to tie around the inside. Yeah, we'll arrange those so that we've got as much poof to them as possible. But that is heading in the right direction. All right, time to finish it, and then the next time you see this, it should be on a stunt head. Quite a few images of Landsknechts show that they are wearing something under their hats, so we're going to pair ours with a sprang hairnet. This has a applied woven braid at the edge. It's been gathered quite simply, very straightforward structure. There's good evidence for these hairnets being made both in more traditional netting but also in the sprang technique, and this one is a pretty good colour combination to go with the hat that we're working on. And here he is. So there's his sprang hairnet. We have got lots and lots of slashes which are sitting quite nicely, just staggered against each other, and then from the front you get this exuberant cascade of feathers and the slashing on top. Absolutely nowhere near as bonkers as some of these hats can be, but a very easy modification to a straightforward 16th century hat style for anybody who needs a really rather daft hat in their collection. That just needs to find a new home, somebody who's going to take it out to play, and let's hope it has lots of very, very happy adventures. Bye for now.